रोलच करून टाकलं.
झाले का join? Only 7 members have joined. What about remaining members? They don't know. वो ग्रुप में ऐड नहीं हुए हैं क्या? Total 27 members are there. उनको पता नहीं है क्या? Forty-seven participants are there. Minute. I don't know what is the situation with other students. Only 7 students have joined, and I have decided to continue 2 classes. If the loss, I am not responsible for that. Okay. So let it be. I will continue with this student only. So I hope you remembered yesterday's class. The class was about the discussion of Orgel diagram. Okay. So before understanding the Orgel diagram and interpretation of the electronic spectra of D1 to D9 complexes with the help of Orgel diagram, I would like to explain the selection rules. Okay. So as far as what are selection rules and why it is necessary to understand the selection rules. So, you know this equation that whenever the UV visible spectroscopy we are studying, this absorbance is measured, okay? And this absorbance which is measured has this equation epsilon into C into T, okay? So T is thickness of the medium, C is concentration of the solution, and epsilon is nothing but molar extinction coefficient. So with this equation of absorbance, which is the basis for the electronic spectroscopy, okay, this absorbance is directly proportional to epsilon value, okay. Absorbance is directly proportional to epsilon value. So it means that if epsilon value is more, absorbance is more. If epsilon value or molar absorptivity is more less, then absorbance value is less. What does it mean? So with this, कुणाचा तरी mic open आहे, please don't disturb the class, okay? Mute yourself. Wherever you will have doubt, I will give you opportunity to ask the doubts, okay? So new students, please follow it strictly. I am going to continue 2 classes today, okay? 1:30 बजे मेरा क्लास छूटेगा, तब तक जितनी भी बार हमारे लिंक चली जाएगी आपको रिजॉइन करना है. So with this, what we are calculating, suppose this is one electronic spectra of certain unknown species, okay, like this. So what you are calculating, measuring actually, this is the intensity of the band, okay? ये क्या है? Intensity है, बराबर है, और ये lambda max lambda है, lambda. So absorbance versus lambda, ये अगर हम इक्वेशन प्लॉट करते हैं तो आपको पता चलेगा कि देर आर सेवरल maximas and some minimas are observed. Okay, so this is what your electronic spectra is. This is the ये इलेक्ट्रॉनिक स्पेक्ट्रम है. इस इलेक्ट्रॉनिक स्पेक्ट्रम में हमको अलग अलग इंटेंसिटी के बैंड मिल रहे हैं, जैसे कि ये बैंड मिल रहे हैं. ओके, so this is the band which shows maximum absorbance at this point, which corresponds to this wavelength. Okay, this wavelength यहाँ पे, और ये एक छोटा सा है जो ना के बराबर है, बट फिर भी थोड़ा सा एब्जॉर्बेंस है, और उसकी वेवलेंथ यहाँ पर है. ओके, so what does it signify as far as this epsilon value is concerned? So since absorbance is more, means epsilon value is more, so the peaks which has maximum intensity or more intensity, or the peaks which are more intense, will have more value of epsilon. Okay, उनकी जो मोलर एब्सॉर्प्टिविटी की वैल्यू है, एप्सिलॉन वैल्यू है, वो ज्यादा रहती है. और ऐसे पिक्स जिनका एब्जॉर्बेंस बहुत कम रहता है, उनकी मोलर एब्सॉर्प्शन कोएफिशिएंट या मोलर एब्सॉर्प्टिविटी या एप्सिलॉन वैल्यू जो है वो बहुत कम होती है. ओके, सो how it is governed, okay, how to predict it as far as theoretical portion is concerned. तुषार काडेट काही लिहू नको. As far as theoretical portion is concerned, how we should explain it? So it can be explained with the help of certain rules which are called as a selection rules. Okay, so intensities of the various bands in the electronic spectra are governed by some rules. Those rules are called as selection rules. Those rules are called as selection rules. Okay, so epsilon value अगर आपकी 10 to the power 3 के above है, about 10 to the power of 3, about 10 to the power of 3, okay, in the order of 10 to the power of 3 or 4, 3 or 4, so that bands are more intense band. मीडियम इंटेंस बैंड का 10 to the power of 2 to 10 to the power of 3, 100 to 1000 के बीच में रहता है उनका इप्सिलॉन वैल्यू. So these are medium intense peak, and below 100 और 10 to the power of 2 अगर इप्सिलॉन वैल्यू रहती है तो वो हो गए लेस इंटेंस पीक. सो these peaks are resulted, more intense peaks which have more value of epsilon are resulted from allowed transition, and this less intense peak which has low value of epsilon results from forbidden transitions. Okay, so in one word I will explain it, that intensities of the bands in the electronic spectra are governed by certain rules. Those rules are called as selection rules. So as far as electronic spectroscopy is concerned, there are two types of selection rules. Okay, what are those? Number one, spin selection rule. Spin selection rule. Okay, spin selection rule. Selection rule. And second है Laporte selection rules. Laporte selection rules. Okay, so the intensities of the band in the electronic spectra are governed by certain selection rules. Number one is spin selection rule. Number two is Laporte selection rule. Now let us have some detailed of spin selection rule. So what does this rule says? Okay, So this spin selection rule says that according to this spin selection rule, according to the spin selection rule, the transition between the same state of spin multiplicity or the electronic transition between the two energy states which is having same spin multiplicity are allowed transition, or same spin state are allowed transition. Okay, मतलब दो energy states जिनकी स्पिन स्टेट सेम है, मान लीजिए ट्रिपलेट है, तो ट्रिपलेट टू ट्रिपलेट, डबलेट टू डबलेट, सिंगलेट टू सिंगलेट, ऐसे स्पिन स्टेट में अगर ट्रांजिशन होता है तो वो ट्रांजिशन अलाउड ट्रांजिशन रहता है, और अलाउड ट्रांजिशन से जो भी बैंड्स मिलेंगे वो मोर इंटेंस बैंड्स मिलेंगे जिनकी इप्सिलॉन वैल्यू more than thousands रहती है. Okay, is that clear? So what is this spin selection rule says? According to spin selection rule, the electronic transitions taking place between the same spin multiplicity or between the same spin state is allowed, whereas the transition which results from the different spin state, okay, transitions which results from different spin state is not allowed transition. It is a forbidden transition. Is that clear? What is spin selection rule? According to spin selection rule, the electronic transition which is taking place between the same spin state or between the same spin multiplicity state is allowed transition, and the transition which is taking place between the states of different spin state is not allowed. It is a forbidden transition. For example, triplet to triplet is allowed, doublet to doublet is allowed, singlet to singlet is allowed. Okay, allowed, but triplet to doublet not allowed, doublet to triplet not allowed, singlet to triplet or vice versa not allowed. Okay, so the electronic transition between the different spin state is not allowed. Electronic transitions between the same spin state is allowed transition. Okay, is that clear? Is that clear? So what is the criteria for
Yes, sir.
delta S? Delta S should be 0, allowed transition, allowed transition. Okay, and if delta S is not equal to 0, that means there is a change in spin state, then it is forbidden, and it is forbidden. Okay, it is forbidden. So the peaks which are resulted from this allowed transition will be more intense peak, and the peaks which are resulted due to forbidden transitions are less intense peaks. Okay, which is having less value of epsilon. Allowed transition की epsilon value बहुत high रहती है, thousands के range में रहती है. So next is Laporte selection rule. Laporte selection rule. Okay, Laporte, और उसको ऑर्बिटल सिलेक्शन रूल भी बोलते हैं. लैपोर्टे आर ऑर्बिटल सिलेक्शन रूल, orbital selection rule. Okay, so what does this Laporte or orbital selection rule says? So it says same thing again. It is related to symmetry, Symmetry means shape. Okay. So according to Laporte selection rule, the electronic transitions which is taking place between the states of same parity, between the states of same parity or same symmetry is forbidden. Electronic transition which is resulted from a different symmetry or sorry same parity or matlab same symmetry is forbidden transition, whereas the electronic transition which is resulting due to the transition between the different parity or different symmetry is allowed transition. Okay, मतलब क्या है, जैसे कि जीरेड टू जीरेड है, G-ray means it is symmetric with respect to center of inversion. So G-ray to G-ray and G-ray to un-G-ray. So these are the transitions which are taking place between the same symmetry or same parity. So these are not allowed transition. Okay, not allowed, forbidden, not allowed. So electronic transition which is taking place between the states of different parity is not allowed or forbidden transition, whereas electronic transition which is taking place between the states of different parity is allowed transition. Different parity or different symmetry, मतलब अगर जी रेट है तो जी रेट से वो अनजी रेट बन रहा है, या फिर अनजी रेट है तो उससे जी रेट बन रहा है. So these are allowed transition. Okay, and the allowed transition will result in high intense band, and forbidden transition will result in less intense band. Okay, so as per as orbital selection rule भी बोलते हैं उसको, तो orbital selection rule is related to the again shape. Shape means if transition is taking place between S to S or P to P, okay, or D to D, again they have same shape. So these are all these transitions are forbidden transitions. Okay, from one S orbital to another S orbital, if transition is taking place, it is not allowed according to Laporte selection rule, because it is happening between the states of same shape. S orbital भी spherical है, दोनों S orbital है तो सेम शेप है. ओके, सेम शेप है मतलब सेम सिमेट्री है, सेम सिमेट्री है मतलब not allowed transition. So from P to P, from one d orbital to another d orbital, these transitions are Laporte forbidden transition. Laporte forbidden transition. Okay, whereas if transition is taking place from s orbital to p orbital, or from d orbital to p orbital, or from p orbital to d orbital, okay, which has different shapes, so these transitions are allowed transition. Okay, these transitions are allowed transition as far as Laporte or orbital selection rule is concerned. Okay, ऑर्बिटल या फिर लैपोर्टे सिलेक्शन रूल के हिसाब से एक यस ऑर्बिटल से दूसरे यस ऑर्बिटल में, या एक पी ऑर्बिटल से दूसरे पी ऑर्बिटल में, या फिर एक डी ऑर्बिटल से दूसरे डी ऑर्बिटल में अगर ट्रांजिशन होता है तो वो ट्रांजिशन फॉरबिडन ट्रांजिशन रहता है, बिकॉज देयर इज डेल्टा एल इज इक्वल टू 0. Delta L is equal to 0. There is no change in L value. So these transitions are forbidden. These transitions are forbidden. So transitions which follow this condition, delta L is equal to 0, are forbidden transitions. Whereas the transition which follows this condition, delta L is not equal to 0, delta L is not equal to 0, then these are the allowed transition. These are the allowed transition. These are allowed transition. Okay, is that clear? समझ में आया?
Yes, sir.
हाँ,
Yes, sir.
इसमें ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन है, ठीक है, और नेट सेट के हिसाब से भी, या फिर अगर थियोरेटिकल एग्जाम होते हैं तो उसके हिसाब से भी very important question is there. So once again I am revising. Intensities of the band in the electronic spectra is governed by certain rules which are called as selection rules. Okay, So more intense band will have high value of epsilon because there is a direct relationship between the absorbance and the epsilon. Absorbance is equal to epsilon Ct. That means it is directly proportional. Absorbance is directly proportional to epsilon value. That means molar extinction coefficient or molar absorptivity भी बोलते हैं उसको. So for allowed transition, the value of epsilon is high. That means it is in the range of 1000 to 10,000. Okay. And it results high intense band. Whereas if value of epsilon is less, that means from 100 to 1000, then it results in medium intense band. And if value of epsilon is less, that means less than 100, then it results in a very small intense band. Okay, so these intensities of various bands is governed by theoretically by certain selection rules. Those rules are called as, one is spin selection rule, another one is Laporte or orbital selection rule. So what is spin selection rule? So according to spin selection rule, the electronic transition accompanied by the change in spin multiplicity is not allowed. अब भाषा बदल रही है मेरी. According to spin selection rule, the electronic transition accompanying a change in spin multiplicity is not allowed. Okay, whereas the electronic transition in which spin multiplicity is retained is allowed transition. Okay, or the electronic transition which is taking place between the same spin state is the allowed transition, whereas the electronic transition which is taking place between the states of different spin state is not allowed transition. For example, singlet to singlet, doublet to doublet, triplet to triplet is allowed transition, whereas singlet to doublet, doublet to triplet, where there is a change in spin multiplicity is not allowed transition. Okay, so delta S should be equal to 0, then transition is allowed according to spin selection rule. And if delta S is not equal to 0, transition is forbidden according to spin selection rule. Then second selection rule is Laporte selection rule or orbital selection rule. So according to this Laporte selection rule, the electronic transition taking place between the